I move on to something else, given restraints on time? What disadvantage, if any, would there be if compliance through pain was removed from the range of interventions permitted?
Well, we don't use it anyway because we're not allowed to. So we have no pain compliance in terms of the holds we put on in CNR and STCs. So
what you do in STCs could equally well be applied across the secure estate?
Well,
you don't experience any deficit in your organisation because you're not allowed to use pain compliance.
I think that my concern is that we have to ensure that any kind of restraint hold we put on is safe for the young people, it's safe for the staff. And that's why I very much welcome the restraint review and the RAB looking at those mentally holds. Now, if you'd have asked me this question 5 years ago when you did your report, I'd have said two things. One, I wouldn't approve of pain compliance at all in any holds put on. Secondly, I wouldn't have ever used handcuffs in my establishment, and I still don't actually, but wouldn't use handcuffs. And I wouldn't approve its use. Now, I've changed my view because I think there's a degree of medical evidence suggesting that prolonged restraint that you can't bring to a quick conclusion because of the safety aspect way of doing it is probably much more detrimental to a young person's welfare than perhaps some pain compliance. And I think that was the view the Joint Chairs came to, I think very reluctantly, because of some of the situations that may have to be managed on occasions in secure establishments. Now I think that as with any kind of, not just restraint, but when you have to use any kind of sort of pain compliance hold, I think the Chief Inspector is quite right. If that becomes the norm, everybody will use it when they don't need to. It's the same with distraction technique. So you've got to make it exceptional when you use it, and you've got to investigate whether or not it should be used at all. But I think that it's fair to say the current holds that we have to use, PCC holds, in some circumstances aren't secure and aren't safe. Now, you know, if you've got very, very large, violent young people wanting to perhaps have a go at somebody else, then it is very difficult in those difficult circumstances to hold that young person safely. So, you know, I would say to you, we've had an independent review of restraint by two people who I think would never have come to the conclusions I would as a social worker. You said I was a social worker, that they wouldn't have recommended it. I was rather surprised that they did, but understood why. I think it's very important that the RAB, Restraint Regulation, will look at it very, very carefully. And we have to be reliant on that medical expert and safety about when we have to restrain young people and what is the safest, medically safest method of doing it, and ensure that whether or not ethically and other things like that we worry about it, the safety of children should be the most important thing in those circumstances.
You've referred earlier to the provision of CCTV in many parts of your estate. One matter that is concerned hardly when it's acting as the legal representative of young people is that they find it difficult to obtain disclosure of CCTV product in relation to questioned restraint and other events that have taken place in an STC. Can you confirm that your company would not place obstruction in the way of CCTV being disclosed where it is relevant to an issue that's being raised in actual potential legal proceedings?
Well, we will have to, because we are a data controller, which actually we had a lot of debate about whether we are the data controller in terms of the Information Officer's office in relation to what goes on. That's only recently actually been resolved. We supervise your work, but we actually are not. So, providing we follow all the legal issues relating to releasing data, particularly if it shows other young people in that, then we will release data in accordance with the regulations.
In accordance with disclosure orders made by courts?
Yes, or in disclosure, or following the guidance of the Information Commissioner how we release data.
So I'm not sure what the Information Commissioner's role is in relation to civil proceedings. If a civil action is brought against any institution based upon something that happened at a particular time, and there is a CCTV product available covering that place and that time, is there any basis upon which it can probably not be disclosed?
I don't think we would not disclose it if that was the case.
Right, well, that's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Most grateful to you, sir.